This is Ken Millay. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the PowerPoint Morph effect to smooth out video edits in Camtasia. Let me start by describing the problem itself. Here I am in Camtasia in the editor, and I loaded in some old recording that I had of myself talking. Now, in this particular one, I don't even have an audio track. I tried to simplify everything just to focus on the video aspects. Of course, in a normal project, you would have audio and video together. Whether those are on one track or multiple tracks does not matter. This technique can be used equally well for both. So we're going to assume that at some point in here, I want to make a video edit and cut out something where I'm talking and I didn't like what I said at that point. What I'm going to do is say, I started saying the wrong thing around here, looking relatively normal at this point, and I'm going to move forward a bit and try and find some place where it's really exaggerated. Let's see where my head looks a lot different. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now my head is turned, my mouth is open in that weird monkey-looking way. You'll notice when you stop on individual frames in a video, it often doesn't look very flattering. Those go by very quickly. When the video is in full motion, you tend not to notice them. All right, so let's say that this was the point where I wanted to edit to. That was where the audio picks up again with what I wanted to say. So I'm going to snip that, and I'll cut out everything in the middle. Let's slide this piece, slide that over a bit. And now I can play from just before to just after that edit point. Let's see how it looks. All right, not a big deal. But if you were watching closely, your eye noticed something jump. My head changed position really quickly. Now, that doesn't seem like very much, but if you've got a lot of those within a video, the viewer starts noticing it consciously or subconsciously. It feels disconcerting. And you're looking for ways to smooth that out a little bit from before to after. Here I'm moving my cursor a little bit so you can see. What's that snap of the head and my eyes and my mouth changing position real fast? Now, you might say, well, why don't I just use an effect in Camtasia? They have things called transitions. If I click on that, there's something here called morph, and I can just drag a morph over that transition point, and it should be something that smooths it out. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Turns out the Camtasia morph does a weird dissolve effect. It doesn't really morph very well. If I play from before to after, watch how it looks in playback mode. I think it calls the eye to it even more than without it there. So I don't like the Camtasia morph. The other effects tend not to minimize the effect of the transition point. So this is where we get into using PowerPoint. What I'm going to do is find the frame of the video immediately before and immediately after the edit point. And to do that, I can use the keyboard. I'm just using the period and comma keys to move one frame forward and back. Period, forward, comma, back. Period, forward, comma, back. So I've found those two frames. That's perfect. This is the before frame. I'm sitting on the right point. That's where my playhead is. That's what it's going to save. When I move up to the top and choose export, export frame as. And we're going to put it into a directory that I had. I'm going to call this F1, and we'll save it as a PNG. I prefer PNG over JPEG because it's just a tiny bit higher quality, and we want as high a quality as we can get. So F1 will be the frame before, and now I'll use my period key and move to the frame immediately after. Same thing, export frame as. We'll call this F2. It's still saving it in PNG mode. Save. And we're just about done with Camtasia. I need one more thing I have to reference. I'm going to put my cursor on the picture itself, and I'm going to click Properties. It's very important that I note the pixel dimensions of the video itself. So I'm going to write those down as a reference. 1280 by 720 width by height. 1280 by 720. I'm going to remember that because I need to use it in PowerPoint in just a moment. Okay, that's everything from Camtasia. We're ready to move to PowerPoint. Let's open a new PowerPoint file. File, New, we'll choose a blank presentation, just whatever it has as the default. And I want a blank layout. So I'll choose a blank layout. There's our slide. We're actually going to make 2 slides, so I'll just duplicate this. I can't remember how to find it in the ribbon because I have it as a quick access, so we'll just make a new blank slide. There's 2 blank slides in my presentation. Now remember I said we had to remember that 1280 by 720 dimensions. It's really important that you make your PowerPoint slide size be exactly those dimensions. That's easy to do. We'll go up to Design at the top here. And then over on the right, we're going to choose Slide Size and choose Custom Slide Size. Here's our dialog for setting up the custom slide size. I'll tell it that I want this to be custom. And you'll notice that PowerPoint tends to work in inches. We're going to change that. We can input our dimensions in pixels, it turns out. PowerPoint will convert them automatically. So I'm going to delete what was in the width, and I'm going to put in 1280 space px. And as soon as I click somewhere else, it's going to convert that to inches. You'll see it change. Yep, there it goes, 13.3. And here in the height, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 720 space px. So tell me whatever you think that should be in inches. Okay, that's what PowerPoint thinks the inches are, but we don't care. The important thing was just getting the aspect ratio correct. And now when I click OK, let's see what happens. Nothing. The slides were that size. You might potentially see an additional dialog box that says, what should I do with existing content, maximize it, or ensure fit? It doesn't matter what you select there. You don't have any content. This is an existing file, so it doesn't matter which thing you choose. Okay, now we've got our slides sized correctly, and we're ready to insert the frames that we pulled before. So here on the first slide, slide 1, I'm going to insert picture from this device. And let me see if I can find that folder that I'd set. There's my F1 and F2. So we'll insert F1 onto slide 1, and it perfectly fills the slide because we made the dimensions correct. Now I'll move to slide 2, which is blank. I'll choose Insert Picture from this device. Let's pick F2. There we go. So now if I go back and forth between slide 1, slide 2, slide 1, slide 2, there's our before and after frames. We're almost ready to get PowerPoint working with its transition. To do that, I need to move up to the Transitions tab. Slide 1 has no transition. That should be on none. That's correct. We're going to change Advanced Slide so that it goes automatically after 0. That seems strange, but I'm just trying to get myself moving from that first frame to the second frame quickly. So that'll be an automatic transition. Click the after on 0. Now on slide 2, this is where we get tricky. Slide 2, we're going to use a morph transition. We're going to make the duration of that morph very short. I'm going to cut that way down to a 1/4 second. Really, Ken? Yeah. The reason we do it that fast is so that the eye does not pick up the blurry motion of the morph itself. PowerPoint isn't perfect. It's interpolating the frames between the before and the after, and there's a little bit of blur in it, so we make that go by really fast. The other reason this is good is because there's going to be that little bit of blank space with no audio, and a 1/4 second is so fast that the typical listener won't hear it. Again, we'll choose to move that after 0 so that it moves off of that slide quickly when the morph is done. That's the transition effect. We are ready to save the transition. To do that, we're going to go to File, down to Export. Have you ever used this? File, Export, and we're going to create a video. Now on the video, I'm going to set my options to the highest resolution I can. So that's what PowerPoint calls Ultra HD. And I don't care what it thinks that is. I just want as much resolution as I can get. Make sure that it says use recorded timings. That's important so that the morph is going to come through quickly. And then I'm going to reduce this figure, seconds spent on each slide, down to 0. I just want it to pick up the morph. really fast. That's all I need to set on the options. I'm ready to click Create Video. And it asks where I want to put that. I'm going to put that into the same place that I had my other stuff, which is this little transitions file. And what should I call that? I'll call it Video Transition. And I'm going to save it as an MP4. You have a choice of MP4 or WMV. Don't use WMV. It turns out Camtasia doesn't like that format. It's jerky. It likes MP4, so that's what I'll use. And I'm ready to save. This goes really quickly. It's done. It's saved it. And at this point, I'd probably want to save the PowerPoint file itself. If I'm going to make further edits, this gets really quick. Let me put that into my same transitions folder, and I'm going to call this my Morph Transition PowerPoint. Saved. Okay, so I'm done with PowerPoint. Let's go back to Camtasia. Here I am in Camtasia. I'm going to put myself on the Media tab. I'm going to import new media. Here's my video transition MP4 file. That was the one that I just created in PowerPoint. So I'll select that and choose Open. There it is in my media bin. I'm ready to play with it in my timeline. What I'm going to do is shove the after over here. Let's move the timeline just a little bit so that we see what we're playing with. And I'll pull this video transition in here. Look how short it is. Almost nothing. Oh, something else popped up. What's this? Your new video clip that you put in is at a higher frame rate. That's because we did that at ultra high resolution in PowerPoint. I'm going to keep this project at 30 frames per second. I'm going to keep it at the current frames per second rate. We don't want to adjust everything else in our project just to fit this little snippet, which is the default. That's fine. We can choose continue. Okay, so now we have this transition. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to just move the playhead over it a bit. Look at how PowerPoint moved from the before to the after. It interpolated a movement of my head. So that's not bad. Now there's a little bit of static stuff before and after. Even though I was keeping those as short as possible, PowerPoint put in some extra frames, and I need to get rid of those so that there's not a stutter in the final project. So to do that, really easy. I'm going to use my comma and period keys once again. Let's move back a frame, back a frame. Okay, so it looks like that's static. Forward, forward, forward. There's my first blur point. Okay, so I like it on the first frame that's blurry. Everything before that is static, and that's already in my video. So I'm just going to move the left-hand margin to that point. And let's use my period key again. Let's see when we get to the last blurry frame. Blur, 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 blur. And that's static. That's about the last blurry frame. So we'll make that the right-hand margin. Wow, that's short. That's about a quarter second. So I'm going to tuck that against the previous. We'll pull the after to it, and we have completed our edit. Let's see how it plays. All right, that was not completely unnoticeable, but it's better than it was. There's that little bit of movement, and it actually shows up better in the produced video than it does here in the preview mode. There's always that little bit. Let me get rid of the media bin, do it a little higher. There's a little bit of lag as it jumps across transitions in the editor. If you do these a bunch in your project, you're going to find that it's less of an intrusion in your viewer's eyes. They're not as distracted by the edit points. And because we've already set up our PowerPoint and everything's ready to do this, and we know what we're doing, we can do additional edits pretty quickly. Let me show you. I'm going to try to explain what I'm doing as much. I'm just going to see how fast I can do another edit. So let's move forward a bit. There I am. That's going to be my before point. I'm going to split at that point. Let's find something that looks a lot different. Where's my head? Oh, there we go. Eyebrows up, mouth open. All right, that'll be my after point. Split. Get rid of the stuff in the middle. Move my playhead and find my before and after. After, before. After, before. That's quite dramatic. Okay, so I'm sitting on the playhead at the proper point where I want it in the before. I'll choose Export Frame As. Let's make this F3. Save. Let's move forward one click. I'll use the period key. There I am at the new point. Playhead's in the right place. Do an Export Frame As. F4. Save. Let's go to PowerPoint. Here I am in my file that's all set up for it. I'm going to just right click on the current picture and choose Change Picture. From a file, let's grab F3. That's my new before. The next slide, I'm going to click on this and choose Change Picture from a file, F4. And now once again, I have my before and after, before and after. Now I can go straight to Export, Create a Video, because everything else is already set. All my options are the same. Create Video. This will be, we'll call it Transition 2. There's Transition 2. We've saved our file. Back to Camtasia. Slide the edit point over. Grab our media, insert that Transition 2 file. There it is. Pull it down in here. Look for, let's make that a little bigger. There we go. Let's look for the first blur point. There it is. That's the first blur. So we'll move the margin of our video forward, blur, blur, blur. That's about the last blurry point. So we will move the right margin of our video, slide it over, slide the transition, and we are done. So we can play that in our preview window. And once again, if I move my cursor, you can see we're using PowerPoint's Morph to move my head a little more cleanly without changing the background. And that's it. That's how you create your not perfect, but smoother morph transitions on video edits in Camtasia. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for listening.